you will absolutely hate Tales of Arise for one important reason. This reason made me so mad and annoyed and bored that I had trouble playing through the game because it dragged everything else down with it. At the same time, you'll absolutely love Tales of Arise for another reason, a reason so integral to any game in this genre. And these two reasons are both extremely important and massive parts of any game, especially a JRPG where relatively linear worlds rarely help in making epic adventures. When I was young, JRPGs used to be synonymous with excellent writing, amazing music, and unforgettable stories. It's clear that my old idea of the great JRPG is all but gone, because not only has Final Fantasy become just a shell of its former self, but Tales of Arise enters the same trap as many other games in the genre. The thing with Tales of Arise though, is that it's so ambitious compared to many of the previous titles. The world is large and beautiful, filled with various biomes, landscapes, times of day, and sports even perhaps the most beautiful city I've ever seen in a JRPG. So it's definitely got the production value down. And if you're a fan of the series or a newcomer, you're gonna love this. The beautiful world also helps to ease us into this completely new Tales universe and story. And the concept itself is not bad at all. We have two peoples at war, where one, the Renans have subjugated the Danans, and the story itself is about liberation and fighting the power. It's simple, but could very well work if done well. So let's get back to the two main selling points of a great JRPG. Let's begin with the gameplay, and mainly the combat system. If you're afraid that Tales of Arise is some sort of boring turn-based game, well then you can leave that worry at the door, because Tales of Arise has one of the best fighting systems I've ever seen in an RPG, period. Not only is it not turn-based, for those of you who happen to dislike that, but it's actually extremely fast-paced and active, requiring your attention at all times. Essentially, Tales of Arise is all about chaining combos, about landing hits uninterrupted for as long as possible, and about using your party members' special powers to deal with tough enemies and their weaknesses. Using your brain will therefore actually work wonders, and allow you to defeat monsters that would otherwise be much tougher. We have our normal attacks of course, but then we have the astral arts, essentially magic which lets us use special powers, most of which look absolutely stunning. The whole thing looks crazy when combined and chained together, and I don't know if I've ever seen such a flashy combat system in a JRPG before. It gets even crazier when you factor in the special moves where characters combine their powers for some major attacks, and again, it's all insanely fast-paced and cinematic. Sometimes even overly so, especially if you're playing in a dark room. These colors are sick. This combat system is the game's best aspect bar none, and gets better and better the further into the game you get. I also like how helpful the teammates are when it comes to healing and attacking, which makes it feel like you have an actual team backing you up. What I could do without though is the extremely spongy enemies which after a while take forever to kill, and especially is this the case with some of the bosses, whom I wish was a bit more creatively designed rather than being simply extra tough enemies essentially. The combat is obviously affected by the game's level system, which I find to be rather boring to go through. You gain experience points in a normal fashion through battles and completing missions, and you can use these to gain new powers or boons in the tech tree. But it's never really fun to do so, especially since over half of the upgrades are related to passive upgrades, which you won't really notice that much after attaining them. I'd much rather get a new ability than dealing more damage to downed enemies for example, and I also find it kind of strange that new ability paths open completely out of nowhere sometimes, for example after meeting a new party member or learning some new truth. It makes it unpredictable in a bad way, and I'm sure it can even lead to confusion for some. Okay, so that was the best and the most meh things about Tales of Arise. I suppose it's time to talk about the really bad stuff then, huh? Okay, here we go. Tales of Arise offers an unbearingly bad story and atrociously written dialogue. Remember when I said the story's concept and background were decent? Well, the way the story progresses is the opposite. First of all, there really is nothing under the surface here, unless you call not knowing your past depth. The story's concept is essentially just the main story as well. We walk from A to B to C, fighting our way through enemies and so-called Renan lords who have enslaved the Nanan people and who are using their souls to win the crown contest for a chance to become the next Renan leader. It's again an interesting idea in the beginning, but when you realize that this is basically all there is, it becomes extremely tedious very fast. What's even worse are the characters. Now, I began by actually liking Alphen and Xion, our two main characters. They have this strange relationship where they're not really friends, but they also kinda like each other, and it's clear that they're both using each other to reach the goal of ending the Renan Lords. But that's kind of where the fun stops, because Tales of Arise falls into the same pitfalls as so many other generic JRPGs out there. Its characters act overly sensitive or dramatically to the tiniest thing someone else says.
Xion, why do you keep people at arm's length?
And everybody has to react or comment on everything. It would really be way too much to mention every single example, but it's the concept that's important. Because Tales of Arise is perhaps the JRPG with the most filler and boring dialogue I've ever played. It of course doesn't help that some of the conversations are not only without voice acting, but that we have added sounds like these.
Hey.
Yeah.
I guess. Interesting.
Oh?
Okay, good.
Further, I find it really strange and just effed up that Alphen constantly talks about how Xion likes to eat or that she's hungry, which I believe is supposed to be funny, but just comes off as really cringy to me.
What are you gonna use the prize money for?
What else? Eating until my stomach bursts.
That sounds right up Xion's alley.
Man, that was amazing! No wonder the old man was so gung-ho about it.
See? What did I tell you?
Xion, you've got sauce on your face.
Of course, each fish has its own unique flavor, too. And some of them are supposed to be extremely delicious.
When you put it like that, maybe it's worth me trying my hand at fishing after all.
You're just in it for the food.
And then let's not forget about the worst part about these boring conversations. The fact that like 80% of them takes place in these side conversations that you can trigger if you so wish, and you do kinda wish to do so not to miss anything. But you'll ultimately hate yourself for wanting to find out what's going on, because not only are the conversations about the most minute or non-important things, but they all take place in this comic book-like format where the characters are both life and charmless. I have no idea why they decided to cut corners in this aspect of the game, which they've spent so much time writing boring dialogue for anyway. When we additionally get like 3 of these conversations types in a row, you're just gonna want to rip your hair and eyes out, because these guys literally never shut up. I guess what I'm saying is, Alphen, stop being the most bland main character ever, and for God's sake stop commenting on Xion's eating.
I was just trying to compliment you.
Xion, stop being an asshole for no reason, and drop the forever tough girl act.
I just don't get the point, that's all.
Rinwell, quit carrying around your stupid owl that ruins the vibe.
I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Law, please don't be so boring.
Makes sense, I guess.
Kisara, well, Kisara can do nothing wrong and I love her.
I thought much the same thing.
And Dohalim, well, I don't really care about you, so make me care about you.
I understand.
And to you, Bandai Namco, will you for the love of all that is good, just stop letting me dress my characters down to nothing but bikinis? I can see through your intentions very clearly, okay? Combined with the schoolboy and girl outfits, there's something that feels very icky about the whole thing. And whatever that is, I don't want to be a part of it. I mean, Rinwell is 14, you know that, right? I'd rather forget that fact, honestly. Tales of Arise is one of the most mixed bags I've ever played. It brings an absolutely gorgeous world, teeming with colors and variation, with loot, monsters, decent but not very memorable music, and a combat system which on the contrary is the game's biggest selling point. It's fun, addicting and fast-paced, and once you've gotten into it, you really don't want to do anything else but keep on fighting. And then there's the story, the characters and the dialogue, which are some of the worst I've witnessed in a while. It honestly depresses me how much of a big opportunity loss Tales of Arise becomes because of this, as it's a drag moving along in the game if not for the combat and the graphics. And when it comes down to whether you should buy this game, well, if all you really want is a fun JRPG in terms of combat and world, then yeah, go for it. Just don't expect a thrilling story, writing you'll remember, or characters you'll fall in love with. Other than Kisara though, she's a keeper. And that's it for Tales of Arise. I'm honestly quite disappointed in this one, and I suppose the next great JRPG looks to be Final Fantasy XVI, which still seems to be a year or two away. For now though, thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your opinions on Tales of Arise. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you'll leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!